All right. We are joined today by this is Mr. Rick Johnson. He's a music creator, educator, and entrepreneur right here in Nashville, Tennessee. And today we're discussing digital music. We're discussing composition and music production. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for joining us. We have listeners, that are ranging from probably kindergarten all the way up to adults. So we have families, educators, and so feel free to speak to any of these audiences as we discuss today. But let's let's chat a bit about who you are and what do you do.
Okay, awesome, man. Thank you for such an illustrious introduction. So, like you said, my name is Rick Johnson. Depending where you know me from, you may see me out, in a recording studio or doing live sound or at a concert and hear somebody call me by a different name. So, within the music community, my moniker, stage name, if you will, is Lyric O'Shea. And so for me, music has always been a big thing. I remember watching music videos growing up. Here's something that a lot of people don't know. As a little kid, when they always say what you want to be when you grow up, honest to God, I always wanted to be a rapper, but I never would tell anybody because I just felt like people are going to tease me and say, oh, you can't do that. So I would say something that sounded good, like, oh, I want to be a lawyer because my brother was a lawyer. But at a young age, I knew I wanted to do music. And my first introduction to it, when I was 15, I joined a Christian rap group, or 14. I joined a Christian rap group with some friends from church. So my first introduction to the music world, with my own experience was as an artist, as a rapper. And so I did that from pretty much high school throughout college.
Cool.
It's helped me with what I do now, which is music education. Pretty much, music education. I think I'll use that umbrella to describe, throw everything under.
That's huge. You already taught us right there. So there was a lesson that I picked up right from what you just said in your introduction. Just like if you have a passion or something that you really want to do, don't be afraid to share it. And don't be afraid to walk in that. So that's great. I can attest to that because as a kid, I know I did the same thing. I would answer that question with what I knew they wanted to hear.
Exactly.
And I would feel, I would feel different. So, but yeah, not to be afraid of that. That's great. So I want to ask this question. So, as a music producer, we hear that phrase, that word, that title so much. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners hear that title a lot. But what is a music producer? Like when we say we're producing music, what does that actually mean?
Man, it means a lot. There are other titles that sometimes, how can I say it? So there's this debate, futile debate in my opinion. Like I feel like the debate is pointless. But there's a debate in some hip hop communities about a producer versus a beat maker versus a producer, right? And it gets into back and forth conversations where a lot of times the vibe that comes off is like one person is saying one is better than the other, and they're not. I mean, they're different. So I say that to say, it's kind of like the preface to trying to unpack it, right? So you have several roles within the creation of music, right? I mean, you have the songwriters who are writing music and lyrics, right? You have beat makers who actually make beats on a keyboard or a drum machine or just by clicking and dragging with a mouse, right? You have music producers. Who else in the creation process? You have the actual recording artists. You have A&Rs. You have all of these people that are all contributing to making this song, right? Making this album. Now, the role of a music producer, it varies based on the kind of music you're working with, right? In hip hop, music producer, a lot of times in application will have a different role than a music producer in country music, right? So I'll kind of just say, so overall, the music producer, to produce means to create, to deliver something. So the overall job of a music producer is to deliver the final product, right? To deliver a song to the record label or to the streaming platforms. So that's the main role of a producer. Now, when you break that down, it's a lot of different things you can do in the process of delivering a final record, right? Yeah. Some music producers, the example I love to give, some music producers do not play instruments at all. Like Diddy, aka P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, whatever you want to call him, founder of Bad Boy Records and Ciroc. He does not play instruments, but he is known as one of the best hip hop producers of all time because he has a great ear. He assembles all the different pieces, right? So he's great at finding samples. Like, man, what record would sound good to be reinterpreted in a hip hop song, right? Which beat maker on my team will work best with this sample? Which songwriter will work best with that? Which artist is this for, right? That's one way of production.
That's great. Wow. Okay, so I want to ask you this. Let's see. So when it comes to, we hear this word tossed around a lot too. So we're kind of, defining the myths, I guess. So what is digital music? And when people toss around the phrase, 'cause we hear that a lot in education, digital music or digital music creation. And because music technology is such a new, when I say new, I mean it's kind of a newer subject that's being birthed within music education, a new content area that's being birthed in music education. So when we hear the phrase digital music and we think of different platforms to create digital music with, how would you answer that? What would they be?
So without getting too scientific and matrix-like, because honestly, when I hear the word digital, I see zeros and ones in my head, if we really want to be technical. But that's not cool. That's not fun. In practical application, digital music is just referring to the use of computers and software to create music.
Nice.
Right, as opposed to analog, like back in the day, so technology has democratized the music business and music creation. And what I mean by that, back in the day, like the very first sampler that came out, which was the CMI Fairchild. So a sampler is an electronic device that can record and play back segments of your recording, right? The very first one was like five figures. Like I think it was like $20,000 or $30,000.
God, yeah.
Of course, your average kids couldn't afford that. I think Stevie Wonder had one, Prince may have had one. So what software has done, it's lowered the barriers of entry, right, into creating music. So now digital music, most people create music on some form of computer, whether it's their smartphone, their tablet, or their computer. Back in the day, you actually had to have an actual instrument. You had to have a recording console. You had to have, analog reel-to-reel tape, where now you can buy a phone. You can buy a microphone that you can plug directly into your iPhone, put on a pair of headphones, and you got a recording studio right on your mobile device.
Wow, there you go. That's That's huge. I think for our listeners, you just birthed a bunch of recording studios right now. Just what you just said.
I'm all for it. Like even with my, I guess, flagship baby of a business with Beats and Bars. The idea behind Beats and Bars is to use education and entertainment to make beat making accessible to those people who have felt intimidated, who love music but feel like, oh, but I can't do that. But you want to, like, secretly you daydream about, man, I wish I could be a producer for a day, or man, I wish I could do this or do that. And so I think just software and technology has made that accessible. So like one of the platforms that I use to create music digitally, specifically for my Beats and Bars business, is a program called Soundtrap. Now, what I love about Soundtrap, and a lot of other music educators are familiar with it, what I love is that it's cloud-based. So there's no additional software that you need to download on your computer, right? And it can go with you wherever you go. As long as you have Google Chrome, right? And that could be on your phone or on a computer and reliable Wi-Fi, you can log in and start making music. And so I love that. Now, when I'm working on my own stuff, because for beginners, Soundtrap is great. When you've been making music for 10, 15, almost 20 years, right? Like, I need a little bit more, so usually I'm using Logic Pro, which is available exclusively on Apple computers. And I've been using Logic Pro probably about 10, 15 years now. I mean, for somebody trying to get started, I would recommend Soundtrap because they have built-in loops, so you can drag and drop loops. If you have some sort of MIDI controller, you can connect that and play on your keyboard. They have a virtual drum machine, and you can record audio, right? So if you just want to invest in, like a USB microphone, I mean, you can get a microphone for like $100. And now with your Chromebook and your $100 microphone, with that, you can enter the world, of recording.
That's cool. That's cool. Oh, nice. Hey, well, I want to ask around. So I see your background, and this next question is kind of around how you got started.
Okay, so the way I got started in the world of music, I kind of shared briefly about it in the beginning that I started in a Christian rap group when I was 14. But for music education, the way I got started with that was with a Christian summer camp called Barefoot Republic Camp. And at that camp, they had, it was an arts and sports camp, and they had a music production specialty. And at that time in 2008, I had just finished, I had finished audio engineering school maybe 2 years before that. And so they asked me, did I want to teach it? And that was my first experience teaching anything music related or anything period. And as I was doing that, I was, I felt like God was just waking up something within me. And so that's really how I got started, just teaching music production at a summer camp. And I did that from 2007 to 2016.
Wow.
But about halfway through that time in 2012 is when I began teaching high school music production. So yeah, that's how I got started in music education.
That's awesome. Okay, let's chat a bit about Beats and Bars.
Cool. So Beats and Bars actually came from teaching at high school. So at a particular high school, I was teaching at Pearl Cone Entertainment Magnet High School. Pearl Cone versus everybody. That school still has my heart. And so we had a pretty fancy, I'm not even gonna be modest. We had a $1.2 million recording studio in my classroom.
Wow.
Right. So that's what I used to teach students. I was responsible for managing that. So you can imagine whenever outside guests would come in, they're seeing this like, oh my goodness, wow, this is in a public school, this is in a classroom. And so I would always hear things like, man, I wish they had this when I was in school. Man, I wish I could sign up to take your class. Yeah. And so those things were the inception, right? They planted ideas in my mind where I was like, man, how can I take what I'm doing in the classroom outside of the classroom, right? And so eventually, through an entrepreneurship program, Beats and Bars was birthed just about a year ago. We're just a little bit over the year mark. And so what Beats and Bars is, our mission is to cultivate community through the creative expression and collaborative engagement of music. And the way we do that is through these interactive beat making parties. I call them sip and sample parties. All right, so a lot of you may be familiar with the concept of sip and paint, right? Where you bring your own bottle of wine, you learn how to paint a portrait, right? It's pretty fun. I've done that on my birthday before. Pretty cool, right? But I'm not a painter. I'm a music creator. I'm a dope producer. So I'm like, how can I take this model and just infuse a little bit of me into it? So that's what Beats and Bars is. We do interactive sip and sample beat making parties focused on community, creative expression, and collaborative engagement. So Beats and Bars is under my LLC. So I have an LLC called O'Shea Music Group LLC. Beats and Bars is one of the 4 companies under that. I also had Beats and Bars Academy. So Beats and Bars, the party is laid back, right? It's like the challenge of a class, but the fun of a party, right? Beats and Bars Academy is for those people who come out just to turn up, have fun one night, and then realize, I think I want to do this more, right? So Beats and Bars Academy is the traditional music lesson format. Then I have OMG Beats, which is, as a music producer, this is the company through which I create beats for podcasts, for individual artists, stuff like that. Then Sound IRS, that stands for Investment Recording Services. That's the work that I do as an audio engineer. So when I'm in the studio recording, mixing, mastering. But the thing I love about this stuff, because someone may be listening or watching and saying, man, that's a lot. All of these things are directly connected to each other. So it's not like I'm running a construction company and running a personal fitness gym and running a grocery store. Like, those are 3 unrelated things. All these things are based in creating music. So that's a little bit about what I do when I'm not teaching in the classroom.
Like, that's huge. You're being able to create and enjoy community while you're doing it. So I think people thrive off that and are thirsty for that. So that's great. Wow, that's great. So let's talk about community, and we're gonna begin to kind of shift. And you've answered this a bit already, but what else do you do? And feel free to reiterate what you've already said if this has been answered. But what else do you do in terms of giving back to the Nashville community, or just your community at large? It doesn't have to just be Nashville.
Gotcha. So, in terms of giving back, so when people say giving back,
I think
sometimes there's a misnomer with that, right? Like, we think giving back means volunteering or doing things for free, and it can mean that, but it's not limited to that, right? So one of the ways I give back, well, recently, as of right now, I have my very first intern. So I have an awesome senior Howard University student studying audio production, getting ready to graduate. Nice. So I'm giving back by mentoring her. That's one thing I do. I also give back through the Faders Up podcast. So I'm a co-host on a pro audio podcast. Right now, it's been a labor of love. We're not generating money from that, but we're sharing, just our advice and perspectives. And what else in terms of giving back? I think the work that I do at Belmont University is a form of giving back. I'm an adjunct professor. I teach a course called Hip Hop Production Techniques. And I love it because I'm able to give a perspective in a historical context that isn't shared very often, right? So understand how hip hop started, right? Understand what was going on socially, understand how racism and segregation and gentrification, how all of those social conditions help create and I guess cultivate the soil for what is now the number one selling genre in music that has completely permeated every part of American culture, And so I think just giving a bird's eye view education on that culture, it is a part of giving back.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and all
things.
Everything behind you.
Yeah.
Beats and bars, like everything that you've mentioned. Yeah, that's awesome. All right. My last question for you. So, of course, the name of this event and program is We Are Nashville. And even though we look a little bit different this year, we're still our mission, our goals are still the same. But when you think about the phrase "We Are Nashville," what do you think about? What comes to mind? What does that mean to you?
All right, the phrase itself. So when I think "We Are Nashville," I think about diversity and ownership. Right. I think that there are multiple people groups and interest groups, and there are all kind of groups that can make that statement with a sense of authenticity, right? Like we could have, the Kurdish community over here, and they can say, "Hey, we are Nashville," and that's 100% true, right? We could have, the music community, the black community, the white community, the church community, the Islamic community, whatever it is. And we all are Nashville because each group, each personality, each perspective adds a different dynamic to it, right?
Okay.
Like Nashville wouldn't be the same if you take away country music. But to be honest, Nashville wouldn't be the same if you took away hip hop music, or if you took away jazz music, or if you took away, tourism, or if so all of these things make up who we are, and even looking at the logo, the We Are Nashville logo. I mean, you have instruments, you have buildings, right? So we have art, but we also have, a city landscape, and and of course like tourism and all of that stuff. So that's what it means to me. I'm sure it means so much more. Like if I just sat here and thought, and stared at the ceiling while I look for the thoughts, I'm sure I could say more. But
no, that's great, and that's what we wanted. That's what I'm looking for. Is just when you hear the phrase, and we're challenging everyone who's participating in We Are Nashville Week this week to really think about that too, and even give your advice back on our website, or give your thoughts on our website. What does We Are Nashville mean? And I think hearing the different responses to that really speaks to who we are as Nashville. Like it speaks to that. But and we're all different, and we're all going to have different responses to that. So we do have a place on the website where students, anyone, family, they can go in and add their own response to the same phrase. Nice. So, yeah, really cool. So it's been great. Thank you so much. And we're also going to, how can people get in contact with you? If so interesting.
Great question. So if you happen to be writing this down, or hopefully we're able to type it onto the website. But the best way to get in contact with me, there's so many ways to get in contact with me. The best way, I would say, just starting with my website, www.o'sheamusicgroup.com. From that website, my phone number is listed on the website. My email is listed. It's so many ways to get in contact with me. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, so you can just Google any of these names, and you'll find me on there. Like, I don't want to say all the www. Like, I'd rather just, if we can type it on the website, let's just type it so people can click on it. That makes it much easier.
We got you. That's perfect. And that's what OMG stands for with OMG Beats.
Yep, O'Shea Music Group. So I got funny story real quick before we close. So the O'Shea part. So it's funny. Some people really think that's like my government name. Like first time I told people, like, just call me Rick. Wait, O'Shea not your real name? So anyway, so I told y'all, my first introduction to music was in a Christian rap group. So when I first started rapping, my rap name was Ricochet. And for me, when I would explain it, that related to my Christian faith in the Bible, where it talks about putting on the full armor of God, right? And so I would say, hey, I got my shield of faith to block the darts of the devil. So when the devil tried to get me, they ricochet off my shield. Right? So that's where Ricochet came from. And then and just over the years, because of people misspelling it and mispronouncing it, eventually, the name kind of gradually changed. It went to, then it's pronounced O'Shea. And then I started going by my middle name, which is Lewis, but Lou for short, because everybody called my grandmother Lou. So I started going by Lou. And then I just kept playing with names. Then I was like, Lou Rick. So the O'Shea is just from my rap name, but the Lou Rick part is a combination of my middle name and my first name. Nice. And it sounds like the word lyric. So I thought that was cool.
It does. See, creativity. See.
Yep, Lou Rick O'Shea, aka Rick Johnson.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you giving up your time and talking and having this conversation with me. And I hope everyone who's listened, all of our listeners, have really benefited and have taken something that they can use. And I hope they reach out as well too. So
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.